There we go. All right, and again, I appreciate y'all being on time for class. We got quite a few scraggling. And it's not a big class, so it's kind of um, difficult to get started with folks being so late all the time. But we're getting there. But folks, so other than letting you all know what the introduction is, I'm always going to get started after 5 minutes. So everybody needs to try to be in. I'm speaking to those of you who are always on time, but after 5 minutes, everybody is going to be late. I'm going to go ahead and get started. After that, folks just need to catch up. All right, we got 3 missing folks, but we're going to go on without the 3 missing folks. All right, so like I said, we've been talking about cell trans. I'm going to go back to sharing. I'm talking about cell transport and active transport. And we said active transport requires energy. And we kind of introduced the fact that our energy molecule in living things is called an ATP molecule. We're going to tie in energy with photosynthesis and respiration. So you might want to make sure that you're taking notes because things are going to get a little complicated as we go through this unit because we have cycles and we have um, things that are going to happen in the light and things that are going to happen in the dark, energy being released and energy being built up. So you're going to need to be able to keep track of all of that. Okay. All right. So let's start with the fact that we have a molecule called ATP. All right. Let me back up and start with the first sentence that they said. All living things require energy. We need energy for everything. All our life processes, growth and repair, digestion, metabolism, all of that requires energy. All of your hormones being released and moving about, that all requires energy. When you cut yourself to repair your skin, all of that requires energy. And so the energy molecule in living things is adenosine triphosphate. So we're going to be looking at that molecule. Um, Also remember that the definition for energy is the ability to do work. And for us, that means the ability to carry out life functions. That's work. Okay. And work is considered when you move something from one place to another. That's work. Okay. So instead of looking at this, I mean, you can look at this later on, but the Nearpod that I'm going to share with you also does a better job of going through this little slideshow here. So I'm going to give you the code for that. Oh, got one more person to let in. Okay, Nearpod. Okay, and I'm going to sometimes my chat button disappears when I don't have the screen enlarged. All right. I put it in the chat, but since I'm sharing, you all can see what the code is. But I put it in the chat now, so you can click on the link, and I'm going to do it teacher-led, but there are interactive portions to it, and I'm downloading the quiz part of it. So everybody needs to make sure that they are logged in and they are doing the activities, because it gives me a report, and the quiz section of it I'm going to record as a grade for today. So please make sure that you're participating and answering all the questions. We got two folks that are late, but we're not waiting on them. Okay. All right. Make sure.
Oh, hello there. I'm at the gym. I don't know why you're here, but I'm going to do some push-ups. So you can join me on the floor if you want. Now, I'm not doing this just to show off or anything.
Are you hearing this okay?
See what happened there? My arms move, my shoulders move, my back and stomach muscles move, my heart pumps blood to all those different places. Pretty neat, huh? Well, it turns out that how we make use energy is a lot like sports or other kinds of exercise. Hard work is a little bit complicated, but if you do it right, it comes with some tremendous payoff. But unlike the ball or the stick, it's so marvelously complicated and awesome that we're still unraveling the mysteries. It all starts with a marvelous molecule that's one of your best friends.
Okay, she said it's a little quiet. Let me see. Okay, you all answer this question. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and fidget with some things, do attendance. So answer that question. Like I said, it's going to show up on the report. And if you don't answer the questions, everybody. So we've already defined it. So you do know a little something about ATP. So type in what you know. And let me see if I can't fidget with this volume. Watch, as soon as I do attendance, they will show up, but they're late now. Um, and all right. So everybody else after this point is most definitely late. Attendance is taken. All right. They said, let me see, there might be host tools. I'm trying to see. Somebody said that there was a way to increase the volume. On the Zoom itself. All right, I increased the volume a little bit. I don't know if that's going to help you hear the video, but all right, so we got everybody's answer. So we got active transporters use energy. I know that. Okay, these are good answers. These are good answers. Very good, very good. All right, thank you everybody for answering. All right, let me come back to sharing. Now, did me increase the volume make me a little louder, or No? Okay. All right, well, hopefully it'll let you hear him.
Today I'm talking about the energy process our cells and other animal cells go through to provide themselves with power. Cellular respiration is how we derive energy from the food that we eat, specifically from glucose, since most of what we eat ends up as glucose. Here's the chemical formula for one molecule of glucose. In order to turn this glucose into energy, we're going to need to add some oxygen, 6 molecules of it to be exact. Through cellular respiration, we're going to turn that glucose and oxygen into 6 molecules of CO2.
All right, I'm going to pause it there because I want you to write that equation at the top. Okay, so write that equation at the top. This is cellular, and also label it cellular respiration. And most of our conversation is going to be about this glucose molecule. When we talked about photosynthesis, we said that photosynthesis makes its own food. It makes the glucose. So it takes the carbon dioxide and takes the water, it rearranges them, and it creates this glucose molecule. If you look at the formula for glucose real close, it looks like carbon plus water. All right. This is one of the reasons we call these things carbohydrates, because all we've done is hydrated the carbon. Okay. All right, so this is one of those formulas that you're going to need to memorize. You need to know the glucose formula by heart. C6H12O6. You need to know that that is glucose. All right, so the glucose is the thing or the food that we take from when we eat, because cellular respiration is the process that takes the energy that you got from eating. Okay, the plants make their own food, but then they have to use it to do their life processes. So we've got this molecule of glucose, and we're going to add some oxygen to it. Nothing is like we have combustion. Nothing happens without oxygen. This reaction does not take place without oxygen. Okay. Later on, we're going to talk about aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. And it's all about, do we have oxygen or do we not have oxygen? Okay. All right. So this is a formula normally where they have those two short arrows. Normally that's a long arrow, yield sign. But glucose plus oxygen yields. So this is not like a math problem where it's yielding carbon dioxide and water. So it's going to release carbon dioxide gas, it's going to release water vapor, but this thing at the end, you want to circle that. That's the important part. The whole reason for breaking down that glucose molecule is to release that energy. So this whole conversation is now going to be about that energy that just got released. Okay? All right, hopefully everybody's written the formula, and I'm going to let him keep on talking.
6 molecules of water and some energy that we can use. So that's all well and good. But here's the thing. You can't just use what you need food business in the US. You just specify with a handful expect to be able to buy these things though they're technically as much. Same goes with energy. In order to be able to use it, our cells need energy to transfer it into triphosphate to begin grow through nerves and brain, everything. A while back, for instance, we talked about how in and out of the membrane. God, you heard about that. Well, before we see how ATP is actually put together, let's look at how cells depend on that. Well, adenosine triphosphate is made up of this base called sugar called ribose and 3-phosphate groups attached. One thing you need to know about these 3-phosphate groups is that they are super uncomfortable sitting together in a row like that, like 3 kids on a bus who hate each other all sharing the same seat. So because the phosphate groups are such terrible company for each other, ATP is able to do this trick where it shoots one of the phosphate groups off the end of the seed, creating a diphosphate. This reaction in the third gene is kicked off the seeds, energy is released. And since there are a lot of water molecules just sort of from one of the H2Os comes over and takes the place of that third phosphate. Everybody is much happier. By the way, when you use water to break down a compound like this, it's called hydrolysis. So now that you know how it's let's see.
Okay. So let's answer this question. By what process is the energy from ATP spent? And actually, when I leave it, so you have those choices there. And when I leave it on this one, you can almost tell whether you got the right answer or the wrong answer because it will light up in the green section how many people got it right and how many people got it wrong. All right, so we got some folks changing their mind to hydrolysis. So yes, hydrolysis is the right answer. You want to write that word down, hydrolysis. In the chat, tell me what he said hydrolysis means. What does hydrolysis mean? And think of the word it's hydrolysis. So what does hydrolysis mean? Everybody with me? All right, a chemical breakdown of a compound due to a reaction with water. Thank you, Ariana. That's a very nice definition. Okay, so and this word is gonna be important because we're gonna add a lot of water to all these chemical reactions. We're gonna take water out. So, okay, so we're adding water for hydrolysis and we're taking away water for dehydration. Okay, so those two are going to be important for building molecules and breaking them down. Okay, he also mentioned a hydroxyl molecule, which is an OH. So anytime you just add an OH back on something, it kind of seals the opening that was created by something moving out of place. Okay, when the bond is broken, it can't just stay unattached. When you get to chemistry, you'll learn how you have molecules like to have all of their electrons paired up. So if something is broken, something else has to take its place. So sometimes it's just by adding the OH from water molecule and the hydrogen goes someplace else. All right, good job, good job. Hydrolysis, hydrolysis. All right, I'm gonna pause that. Write that down what he just said. 1, because you're going to need to know this number. This is another number. Got a lot of numbers that you're going to have to remember. You need to remember 1 molecule of glucose can yield 38 ATP. So that's how much energy it gives off. Oops, okay, I paused it there. Write those 3 words down. All right, I told you that we're going to learn cycles with this. So this is going to be 3 separate cycles. This process of using energy and releasing energy and building more energy goes through stages. So you're going to need to know what each of these phases do. All right, so I just want you to write them down so that you're familiar with them. but he'll explain it, and we're going to spend a lot of time on each of these.
Now, in order to explain exactly how glycolysis works, I'd need about an hour of time with finger puppets, each playing a different enzyme. I know the way we do it, I have to use words like phosphoglucoisomerase, but a simple way of explaining it like this: you want to make some money, you gotta spend some. Glycolysis needs but in the end, in addition to those four ATPs, glycolysis results in two pyruvates and two super energy-rich morsels called NADH. They're sort of the love children of the key vitamin called NAD, thus carrying the prized electrons, hydrogen, big storehouses of energy that will later. Now, to keep track of all the awesome stuff we're making here, let's keep score. So far, we've created two molecules of ATP and two molecules of NADH. Now, a word about oxygen. Like I mentioned, glycolysis, for example,
Okay. It says, which is not true about glycolysis. It takes up 2 ATP. It makes 4 molecules of ATP. It needs oxygen in order to happen. It makes 2 molecules of pyruvate. So it's kind of like the last thing he just said. What is not true? All right, only half of you are answering. It does keep track, so I do know when everybody's participated, because the pi will tell me. It knows how many of you are logged in. And when we get to 100%, that means everybody's answered the question. Right now, somebody hasn't answered the question. Thank you. Good job. All right, so C, it does not have to have oxygen. All right, so he did say that it requires 2 ATP molecules so that it does use it up. And in the process, after of breaking down the glucose, it's going to make 4 at the end. And the pyruvate, all right, we wrote the formula for glucose. Glucose is a 6-carbon molecule. And what it does is it breaks this thing into breaks it in half. So you have 2 3-carbon molecules. Okay, so that's what pyruvate is. So he showed you these 3, and a lot of times they're going to do the dots according to the carbon. Okay, so there's 2 sets of 3 unit carbon molecules, and they're the pyruvate. All right, so the only thing it doesn't need at this point is oxygen. All right, and I'm going to say that again. The anaerobic means without oxygen. So again, a lot of vocabulary, so just you got to keep up with it. Anaerobic means without oxygen. So this process does not require oxygen. The glycolysis, the first part requires oxygen, but not this part.
for instance, in some organisms like all of this stuff. But luckily for our muscles don't need out. If that were the case, working out would make us strong, especially. But instead, that's or the muscles use all the oxygen. They have to give it aerobic respiration in order to get the energy. So you have all this lactic acid building up in your muscle tissues. score, now we have made 2 molecules of ATP through glycolysis, but your cells really need the oxygen in order to 30 some molecules. And that is because the next 2 stages of cellular Krebs cycle and the electron transport are both aerobic processes.
Okay. In the absence of enough oxygen in the muscles, what happens to the pyruvates that result in the process of glycolysis? They go through fermentation, producing ethyl alcohol. They go through the process of lactic cycle, producing lactic acid. They go through fermentation, producing lactic acid, or they go through the process, the lactic cycle, producing ethyl alcohol. All right, looks like you all were paying attention. All right, so remember, fermentation is anaerobic respiration. It happens at the end of glycolysis. That's our first cycle, and it produces lactic acid. Now he said it's going to store there, but if we build up too much lactic acid, that's what makes your muscles sore when you're working out, like he said. That's the thing that makes you not feel so good. All right, thank you, everybody.
So we find ourselves at the next step in cellular respiration after glycolysis. So while glycolysis occurs in cytoplasm, cells hang out in the Krebs cycle happens across the inner Krebs cycle makes products of glycolysis. So to create some energy, a couple of other forms.
All right, I'm pausing there. Okay, you see how sometimes it circles. He's using triangles, but those triangles represent the 3 carbons that are in each of those pyruvate molecules. So it's 2 pyruvate molecules, but each of them is like a 3 carbon H3 something. Okay. All right, so write this equation as well. So you're going to take those 2 pyruvate molecules plus 2 ATP plus some energy. Oh, I'm sorry. Start with writing the Krebs cycle. So we're in the second part of this aerobic process. Cellular respiration. The whole thing is cellular respiration. It started with an anaerobic piece, glycolysis, step 2. And in that first step, you created the pyruvates. So you took a 6 carbon molecule and made it 2 3 carbon molecules. So now we're going to take those 2 3 carbon molecules and we're going to put it through another cycle called the Krebs cycle.
What's left is a 2-carbon compound that's another plus comes along and picks up the hydrogen. So our 2-carbon bring together just the right way. Enzymes, for example, bring together phosphate, ATP molecule. Enzymes also transport the acetylcholine acid. Together and they form a 6-carbon molecule called citric acid. Certainly, that one. Fun facts. Krebs cycle is also known as this very byproduct. On Krebs, throat surgeon, about these candidates discovered this incredible complex. Anyway, the citric acid is an oxidized over fun, so basically it stops cutting carbons off left and right. carbon dioxide, exhale, new and
All right, I'm going to pause it for a minute. Next to your title that where you wrote Krebs cycle, in brackets, write citric acid cycle, because sometimes you will see that written. The Krebs cycle is called the citric acid cycle because, like he said, it produces citric acid. So you, depending on what book or what test you're looking at, they might call it. It's typically scientifically the Krebs cycle, but it is also known as the citric acid cycle.
who are existing as people are as products of the Krebs cycle. First time the carbon comes off of the system, for a whole different kind of this is plus poly. Energy plus and FAD are B vitamins. B vitamins are good at holding, keeping that energy. In fact, they're so good at it that they show up. Vitamins, it's FADs are like big, awkward factors. Pick up hydrogen, which with that charges them up. The addition of hydrogen turns them HF. H-pyruvate is 3 1 FAD. Right there. Since each glucose has been broken down. The purpose of the Krebs cycle is to
Okay, which is not a result of the Krebs cycle. So the Krebs cycle does most of these things except. Okay, about two of you still haven't answered. Again, the good part about me looking at the teacher version of it is it shows you when you've picked the right answer. All right, so everybody has answered that yielding ATP, 19 ATP molecules per pyruvate or 38 per glucose is not a result of the Krebs cycle, but the other two are. So we are yielding, and we'll talk more about the NADH and the FADH2 later on. But know that those, as he said, are the enzymes, and they are created per pyruvate molecule. And then what he also mentioned that during this process is where the carbon dioxide that we exhale or that is released during cellular respiration happens during this phase. And then we are creating the molecules for the next phase, the third phase, so that the last one is a correct statement.
sweet pyruvate sandwiches, Hank. Aren't we supposed to be making ATP? Let's make it happen, Cap. What's the holdup? Well, friends, with patience, it's finally paying off. Comes to ATP. All those electrons are going to try to get the that rendering of the protein will swap the electrons and hydrogen protons inside the very center of compounds across out of the carbon. Once they're out, the protons want to get back to the other side. Right? Because there are a lot of other protons proton flow drives a crazy spinning mechanism that squeezes some ADP molecules together. The electrons from the 10 NADH that Krebs cycle have just enough energy. We can't forget our friends, the SEC.
All right, next question. They always cut him off so abruptly. The electron transport chain produces much more ATP than glycolysis or the Krebs cycle, but it needs them to happen in order to take place. How do the first two steps make the last one possible? So I'm going to take this out like that and give you a chance to answer that question. So think about, try to remember what he said. What are we making in this glycolysis and what are we making in the Krebs cycle that makes the electron transport chain happen? That's what the question is asking you. Think Isabella got kicked out? And did he kick you out? All right, I'll give you another minute to finish thinking about what you might want to say. Like I said, he talks very fast. I like him, but he talks very fast. We are going to break down each of these cycles individually, so have no fear. This is not the only time you will see this. This is like a quick introduction. Okay, let's see if everybody's working. All right, because Sean, Isabella, and Piper, we need you to put your answers in. Okay. Oh, still waiting on the same three people, but I'm going to keep going on because that's a non-response, folks. All right, so let's look at the three answers that I did get. Thank you, Ariana, Kayla, and Natalie. All right, so glycolysis and Krebs cycle produce the NADPH. Thank you, Piper, which are essential for the electron chain to generate a large ATP. Okay, keep going, because you, like I said, this is going to do a printout for me, so I need your answers to show up on the printout. All right, through oxidative, you use those lovely big words. Yes, indeed. All right, the first two steps while the electron uses the carrier to generate the majority of the AT. It's at 2% volume. Is there any way you can turn up your volume so that you can hear it better? Because I've turned up this side as much as I can. I went on the Zoom and I turned it up as high as I could. It might be that you need to increase your volume on your side. Okay. All right. But technically, folks, Isabella and Kashan, if you haven't typed anything yet, the Ariana and Natalie kind of have the similar answer, but that's what you need to say. Okay. So make a note of that. Pick one, either Ariana's answer or Natalie's answer, and write that down. That glycolysis, which is what she's saying, the first two steps, produce the NADH and the FADH2, and they are essential for the transport system to produce that large amount. So in the end of the day, excuse me, we need to have produced 38 ATPs. We're only producing 2 during the first stage. So we need the rest of them to be produced. Actually, we're producing 4 because we used 2 of them. So then we need to get those back at the end of the cycle. All right, so I need you to make sure that you type in an answer. Um, I don't know if you'll get a chance to do that if I go forward, so I'll give you another minute. Because this is not on student pace, it's on teacher pace. Okay, thank you, you two. I will go on now.
That is how animal cells the world over. Not just a chicken. Create 2 ATPs for each pyruvate during glycolysis.
Okay. And I'm not even going to ask you to answer that question because I am sure that you are still confused. And we will go through this again individually. But that, like I said, was kind of an overview of where we need to go as far as looking at energy molecules. So let's go back to Canvas. All right, so again, this section here, right here, it kind of gave you a different overview than he gave you in the video, but basically it did the same thing. What you also need to remember is when we talked about all the parts of the cell, all those little organelles, they are membrane-bound organelles. So those membranes look just like the outer cell membrane. They have that lipid bipolar membrane, and they have the little channel proteins inside. And ATP is one of those molecules that has to actively be brought in and out of the cell. Okay, so that's kind of what I wanted you to see in this picture, right here in the off to the bottom right side. So notice that this is the membrane, and this is inside the mitochondria. This is where the energy is taking place in the mitochondria. So the mitochondria has a membrane around it, and it's letting materials in and out so that it can make this energy. Mitochondria's nickname is the energy factory of the cell. Everybody has a little nickname, Mitochondria is the energy factory. Okay, so that's not the cell membrane that you're looking at. That is the mitochondrial membrane. All right, so why do we need energy? We need energy for growth and repair. We need it for the cell transport because that system needs energy, and we need it for reproduction, okay, to make more cells. All right, he kind of briefly went through this. So if you're looking at the picture, you start off with an ATP molecule, and basically you need to remember that that P stands for phosphate. And those little green circles, there's three of them. So triphosphate means there's three phosphates attached to the adenosine molecule, which is adenine and ribose connected together, plus the three phosphate. So then it shows you that in the process of doing this, one of those little phosphates breaks off and it releases energy. And then when it does that, it's not three phosphates anymore, it's only two, so it becomes adenosine diphosphate, or ADP. But it doesn't stay like that. It goes around, it's kind of like a low energy battery. It has to get energized again. So there are phosphate molecules floating around. So it's going to pick up a phosphate molecule and become ATP again. And then it can go do its job. Okay, so it's releasing the energy somewhere because it's required to do a job, and then it becomes ADP, and then it goes away, picks up another phosphate, comes back, and does some more work. Okay, so this is a cycle. It releases the energy, picks up energy, releases energy, and it keeps on going like that. All right, this one, you may need to write this one down. Okay, so you need to know that during the first stage of energy sources, where do you get your energy from? Most of the time we're talking about glucose, which is a carbohydrate, but your proteins can also produce energy. So this is how diets work. If they tell you to go do a low carb diet, the body says, okay, I need energy. I'm going to get it from the proteins I've got stored. I'm going to get it from the fat molecules I've got stored up. So all of these molecules produce energy. It's not their job to produce energy. Proteins are job is to build up muscle tissue and other structures, hormones and things like that. That's the job of the protein. Lipid's job is to create protective linings and things of that nature. So that's their job. But the body is smart. If you don't give it enough carbohydrates, and their job was to produce the energy, it's going to find the energy from someplace else. So as it does that, heat energy is released. So all of this generates heat. Any action that you do generates heat. It's also going to release carbon dioxide and oxygen. That is a product. The thing that is made during respiration is carbon dioxide and oxygen. But it also makes ATP. So notice at the top, the ATP is cycled into the next box, and then we use that energy. So the whole point of respiration was to make energy. Okay, so we create the ATP, and then we use it for all of these wonderful body processes. Biosynthesis, meaning making life structures, detoxification. In other words, you got to remove the waste from the cell, thermogenesis to keep you warm, to generate heat inside. That ion transport system requires energy. Remember, passive transport in the cell requires energy, and muscle contractions. You can't move without energy. But in the process of doing that, you've used the energy and you've now created these ADP molecules, which have to in turn pick up a phosphate somewhere along the way so it can go back and break down some more macromolecules. We started the year off talking about macromolecules. Okay, so all these things are going to start tying in together. So the macromolecules that we learned at the beginning, now we're looking at what are we doing with them? All right, so hopefully everybody wrote this box down. Because this cycle is important to know. All right, when you finish writing that, there's one more. And I'm going to go on, but I know you all can control your screen. So if you're not finished drawing that box, you can stay where you are. All right, the next thing that you have to remember is all energy comes from the sun. We can't use that energy, so we need all the plants to do their job. So photosynthesis is the process where the sunlight absorbs the energy from the sun and it creates 100% of the energy, but we can't use it in that form. So we need photosynthesis to happen so we can make that glucose molecule, store it up. Some animal can eat it or the plant can use it and then undergo cellular respiration to release the energy. All righty. Okay. If you have not written this, let's write this down again. What you need to be able to do is to be able to write the formula for photosynthesis and respiration. But this is what I want you to do. I only want you to write it one time. I want you to write photosynthesis on top. I want you to write 6H2O plus 6CO2 plus light yields 6 C6H12O6 plus 6 oxygen. All right, and again, C6H12O6 is glucose. Then I don't want you to rewrite the equation, but what I do want you to do is to underneath write an arrow that goes in reverse. And then underneath that, I want you to write respiration. And in reverse, I want you to say 36 ATP on the end. Okay. So what you need to know is the products, the things that are made during photosynthesis are used, or what we call the reactants of cellular respiration. And then the products of cellular respiration are the reactants, except for the ATP, for photosynthesis. Okay. So cellular respiration makes water and carbon dioxide. Photosynthesis uses water and carbon dioxide. Photosynthesis makes glucose and oxygen. Respiration uses glucose and oxygen. Okay? Photosynthesis stores the energy. Cellular respiration releases the energy. And that's what you need to get out of those equations. All right, so you don't have to write, if it's clearer to you to write the equations twice, do that. But what you also need to remember is that one equation is the reverse of the other. Photosynthesis is creating the molecule that stores the energy. Cellular respiration is the process that releases the energy. Okay, and that's the summary on those two. All right, when you finish with that, look at the picture below. And it has little icons that have information circles. So go through and study those and read those information bubbles. All right, so if you finished writing the two equations, looking at the picture is placing those equations back into the cell. The first part is placing it in the cell of a plant, and the second part, actually, both of these can be in the plant cell, but the second part most specifically is in animal cells only, okay, which tells you underneath each picture. All right, so it starts with sunlight, the original source of energy. All the energy that we are getting comes from the sun originally, okay? And it reaches autotrophs. The term autotroph is self-feeding, and which is what plants are. They make their own food, so they feed themselves. They don't have to go hunting. They feed themselves. And it's inside the plant cell. There's a chloroplast. So all of this activity, photosynthesis, is happening in the chloroplast. All right, green plants and algae are doing this. So again, they are storing the energy. So then our next little icon here, there's an chlorophyll is a chemical inside the chloroplast. And then you need to remember there's a difference between those. The chlorophyll is in the chloroplast, and it helps. It is necessary. You can't do this without the chlorophyll. It's the enzyme that makes the process uh, go faster, and it helps to store the sunlight energy in the chemical bonds of sugars. Okay, sugar is again that glucose molecule. Okay, so again, step one, you got to store the energy in a glucose molecule. All right, go away. All right, so then we've made our sugar and we're releasing oxygen, and then we've also made that those two ATP are used to, because this is a process, so it needs energy. That process doesn't happen without some energy. So he talked about the two ATP that are used to make this happen. Okay, now notice where we are. We're in the mitochondria. Now, plant cells have mitochondria as well as animal cells. So this is happening in both the plant and animal, or it says all eukaryotic cells. So remember, we have eukaryotes are the cells that have membrane-bound organelles. Prokaryotes have stuff inside the cell, but they're not bound by, they don't have a nucleus, and they don't have all the other little structures that are bound by a membrane. But they find a way to get what they need to get done anyway. But we're looking at this process in eukaryotes. Okay. And so this is where cellular respiration occurs, in the mitochondria. All right. And then work is done in the cell, energy is lost as heat. So all processes, like if you're rubbing your hands together, eventually it gets hot. The activity of moving your muscles like this generated heat, and it's just lost to the environment. And then we say nothing is really lost. It's lost to the environment, but it's absorbed someplace else. So it's lost to your system. So heat is not cycled. Energy is cycled, but heat is not. Okay. All right. Okay. Go. Stop clicking. All right. In the time that's left, I want you to do this activity. Now I may give this this exact same thing as a quiz. So take a few minutes, take the remaining of the time to go through and figure out the correct answers for these, and I'll review it with you in a minute. But play with it for the next few minutes by yourself, and then look at the before you go. So again, everybody should be looking at just the matching sections. I don't see any of y'all doing this. Everybody's doing something else. I know I stopped sharing and you stopped looking. All right. Again, I'm going to use this as this little matching section as a quiz on Wednesday. So hopefully at some point you do take a look at it. All right, I'm going to go through it real quick. All right, what is the source of energy for life on the earth? The ultimate source of all energy is the sun. Which product of photosynthesis requires energy? Oh, sorry. Which product stores energy? Stores energy, stores energy. That's the glucose molecule. That is our storage molecule. What form of chemical energy is used by the cell? ATP. Is energy recycled? Yes, it is, because that was the whole point of our little diagram with the ATP, the ADP back to ATP. Ability to do work is how we define energy. When ATP is used for energy, it becomes ADP because it loses one of the phosphate molecules. The process of taking energy from the sun and converting it to glucose is photosynthesis. And when food breaks down to release energy, it is called cellular respiration. All right, so that's going to be your quiz on Wednesday. All right, so make sure that you have gone through it and memorized those answers. All right, so we'll do that and we'll move on to the next section as well on Wednesday. All right, you all have a great day. Time's up.